Hi, it's Katrina. From their ideas of beauty to their myths and legends, here are 10 amazing and surprising things you didn't know about the Maya. Number 10. The myth of creation. Every culture around the world has its own myth of creation, but the Maya version is particularly interesting. There are many variations from different groups, but the Popol Vuh, a book that details the mythology and history of the Quiche people, is the one that most Maya researchers refer to. It says that in the beginning there was nothing apart from the sky and the oceans. The only consciousness that existed was the heart of sky. The heart of sky said one word, earth, and the earth rose. Mountains formed and trees grew, and the heart of sky created the animals, birds, deer, jaguars, and snakes. The animals, however, were unable to speak, so the heart of sky then created the first human ancestors. At first, he tried to form humans from wood, but they failed. Their faces were crushed and they became monkeys. Finally, humans were successfully made and sculpted from maize corn dough, from which 4 men and 4 women were created and given the power to do anything with the land that they wished. Number 9. The Olmec. The Olmec were the first main civilization in Mexico, and they influenced many of the subsequent civilizations, like the Maya. They lived in the lowlands of the Gulf of Mexico, and they were the ones responsible for creating the Maya calendar, as well as many other things we think of from the region. They lived from about 1600 BCE to 350 BCE, and their name literally means rubber people, thought to have been given to them because they were the first who worked out how to convert latex from the rubber tree into a useful material. The thing that they are best known for is their stone head carvings that they made from basalt. So far, 17 of these sculptures have been discovered, which all depict men with fleshy cheeks, flat noses, and crossed eyes. Without having a written language, their countless pictorial inscriptions around the region are some of the few things that we have. They lived mostly in small villages, but at the center of trade routes would build much larger communities, such as San Lorenzo and La Venta, which were used mainly for ceremonial activities. Number 8. They loved chocolate. The Maya were absolutely obsessed with chocolate, more specifically the cacao bean. They harvested the seeds from cacao trees, fermented and dried them, removed their shells, and then ground them into a paste. This paste would then be combined with water, cornmeal, chili peppers, and other spices, and they would pour this mixture between containers to produce a frothy drink. This was their preferred way of consuming chocolate, but it wasn't just the elite of society that would have access to it. Lots of Maya artifacts have been found with images that depict large groups of people preparing and drinking cacao, and it was clearly an integral part to their social and religious lives. They even had a dedicated god of cacao. They learned how to cultivate cacao in their gardens and would even bury the seeds in their tombs and use them in rite of passage rituals. Number 7. Maya gods. The Maya had gods for virtually everything, with as many as 250 different ones. They oversaw every aspect of people's lives and events that happened around them, with ones for birth and death, health, age, crops, weather, and many, many more. Curiously, the gods were changeable too, which meant they could be a man, a woman, or both, young or old, and even good or evil. Despite there being so many, there were a few that stood out in terms of importance. Itzamna was one of the creator gods who taught humans about writing and medicine. Cox was the god of the wild plants and animals and the god of the woods, while Kinich Ahau was the god of the sun. Ixchel was the goddess of medicine and midwifery. Chak was the rain god, and Kukulkan was the serpent god of the Mayas, to whom numerous human sacrifices were made. That's the one you need to be worried about. Number 6. They wrote books. While the earlier Maya civilizations didn't have a written language, the later ones did, and they wrote numerous books. Unfortunately, the damp climate of the jungle meant that many didn't survive. This, and the fact that in the 16th century, the invading Europeans burnt everything they found, claiming them to be works of the devil. This has meant that only 3 or 4 remain, with many believing that one of these is a fake. The first one is known as the Dresden Codex, which dates back to the 13th or 14th century. It makes references to an even older text and details in Maya glyphs, local history, and astronomical tables. The Grolier Codex has been dated to the 11th or 12th century and is thought to have been discovered in a Mexican cave in the 1960s. Its poor condition means that it's not clear what was written about in it, but there are images depicting hunters and also the mapping of the transit of Venus across the sky over a 104-year period. The Madrid Codex is the clearest of the 4. It depicts human sacrifices and day-to-day activities, as well as containing horoscopes that were used by priests in their ceremonies. It also contains astronomical charts and is thought to have been an important religious document. The final book, the Paris Codex, dates from somewhere between the 10th and 16th century and is in a very poor state. What's clear, though, is that it details astronomical signs and gives information related to a period of 260 years. There's still far more to be learned from these books, which, with further research, could be possible. Researchers are hoping, though, that there are more out there just waiting to be found, which could help decipher the ones we have and help us learn more about the Maya. Number 5. Tayasal and the Sacred Horse. In the 16th century, as the Spanish forces wiped out Maya civilizations across South America, there was one place which held out much longer than the others, an island called Tayasal, in what is now northern Guatemala on a lake called Petén Itzá. On March 13, 1525, Hernán Cortés, who had conquered the Aztec Empire, arrived at the north shore of the lake and was greeted by the Itzá leader, Ahau Canek. The Spanish staged a celebration of Mass, to which Canek showed great interest and even declared his desire to convert to this new religion, something he had no intention of actually doing, but managed to stall the Spanish from taking more forceful measures. Clever guy! Cortés accepted an invitation to visit the town and, at great risk to himself, went with a small group of soldiers. He was welcomed by the locals, and on his departure he left with them a lame horse, promising to return for it one day. The Itzá treated this horse so well, but unfortunately it died soon after Cortés had left. Fearing that this would anger the Spanish, they constructed a giant horse statue where they displayed the dead horse's bones and named it the Thunder Horse, thought to be because they believed it was the Spanish horses that were responsible for the gunfire sounds. Cortés never returned, though, and it would be a century before the Itzá people had another visit from the Spanish. The region had become a refuge for the Maya people, and the people renowned for being ferocious and using the tough terrain to their advantage. Eventually, a friar called Orbitar visited and was invited to the town. Upon seeing the statue of the horse, he became enraged at the false idol, climbed it and smashed it with a stone. He was quickly asked to leave and surprisingly managed to escape with his life. The people of Tayasal managed to repel further Spanish attempts at overtaking them, but eventually, in the face of a huge army, the final Maya settlement fell in 1697. Number 4. The Afterlife. In Maya belief, the soul was bound to the body during life and could only be released during illness or death. Once freed, they believed our souls traveled to the afterlife, a journey that involved traversing rivers flowing with blood and chambers full of traps, such as sharp knives, bats, and jaguars. Once completing their trials, souls were able to be bound to another body in the living world, whether that be human or animal, and begin the process all over again. Different Maya groups had their own spins on the stories, which included needing to be buried with valuable objects to be able to traverse the afterlife, or the idea that spirits still had tasks to do once they got there. The memory of the dead was an important thing to the Maya, and many would hold festivals where they would pray for and remember the dead. This was a common act seen in tribes across South America at the time, and was what led to the celebration of Dia de los Muertos in Mexico today. Number 3. They played deadly sports. The most popular sport played by the Maya was a ball game called pits. It was an integral part of their lives, and as well as being played for fun, the results could impact political and religious decisions. The game was played with a rubber ball, varying in size between that of a baseball to a soccer ball. Players would bounce the ball without using their hands and aim to get it through hoops that were on the side of the court. Pits is depicted in carvings across Maya ruins and was believed by them to be the sport that their gods played. One story about the maize gods was that 2 of them were killed on the court by the gods of the underworld for making so much noise. This showed to the Maya that the sport must be played for their own survival, so it was quite common for there to be sacrifices of captured kings or lords at the games, and sometimes they'd sacrifice the losers or the winners of the game to bring good fortune. Number 2. Maya beauty. Every civilization has had their own version of what beauty is, and the Maya were no different. They looked to their maize god Cox for what the ideal was, and they would go to extreme lengths to achieve it. They saw elongated heads as attractive, so infants went through a special process to change their skull. The Maya would attach 2 boards to babies that were 2 days old and increase the pressure over a number of days to cause the forehead to slope up and backward. Once thought to be a process reserved only for noble babies, recent studies have shown up to 90% of Maya skulls were affected by this. Next, they liked slightly crossed eyes and would attach a headband to infants with a stone hanging from it, with the hope that as the child attempted to focus on it, it would cause a slight cross of the eyes. Pointed teeth were fashionable too, and would be achieved by filing the teeth and in some cases drilling gems into them. Pierced lips were popular and so was body art, but the process of getting a tattoo was so painful and dangerous that having one was seen as a sign of bravery. Number 1. Maya blue. Maya blue was an important color to the Maya people, and unlike other pigments, it's remained vivid to this day on numerous artifacts. It's the shade of blue that you see on Maya pottery and murals, and has become synonymous with their culture. But it wasn't just a color, it had deep meaning to those that used it. It was only ever created during rituals that involved the burning of incense and ingredients by a priest. It was then painted onto objects as offerings to the gods. It also had a dark side to it, as it was key to certain sacrifices. One account from the time said that if the skies looked too much like Maya blue for a few days, in other words dry and without any clouds, then they would select a victim, strip them, paint them with Maya blue, place them on a stone altar, and cut out their beating heart as a gesture to their god Chak, who oversaw the rains and human sacrifice. Once finished, they would throw the bodies into cenotes, or natural springs, and hope that this would cause the rains to return and allow their crops to flourish. Thanks for watching! I hope you learned something new today. Remember to subscribe, and I'll see you soon.